learning something from a source recording can be difficult, obviously, for many reasons. The intonation of the fiddler could be a little off. Their tuning, they might not be tuned exactly to a 440A. Um, Making out the notes sometimes is really, really tough. And some of that has to do with the actual quality of the recording, but a lot of it also has to do with the skill of the fiddler as well. And not necessarily poor skill or anything, but just the way they viewed the tune. Sometimes they viewed it more as a shape, so the individual notes really weren't a big consideration. Or it could also be that over time they might have just kind of forgotten the exact notes and they kind of played more of what just fit into the shape as they knew it as. Okay, so those are some things to consider. And the tune that I'd like to look at is the tune that we actually feature for Old Time Tune of the Week, which aired today. The tune from Lusk, Gribble, and York called Jenny Eat the Wood Hen. And so I picked that tune because I was looking at the Lusk, Gribble, and York site online, and there's source recordings there from when they recorded, people recorded them in it's like 1949, 1946, 1949, 1964, I think. But anyway, so the recording from 1964 is there, Jenny Eat a Wood Hen, and I thought it was, first of all, I thought it was an interesting title, so I kind of wanted to look into that because there isn't any other fiddler playing a tune by that name that I knew of, and so then I looked into the tune more, and I googled Jenny Eat a Wood Hen, and it looks like no modern fiddlers actually recorded that tune. So the only recording was that source recording that I had to work with, and there were no dots anywhere, so really left to have to listen to it and interpret it. So the first step to doing this, I figure I'll just tell you what I did. The first thing you would do is establish what key the fiddler was playing in, and again, that's not necessarily what's sounding. Okay, by that I mean what key you would play it in, so the finger patterns. Okay, and it turns out that tune it's in the key of C. He was too low though. He wasn't quite tuned at a 415A. It was very close to it though. He was somewhere between a 415A and a 448. So that's the first thing you'd have to deal with listening to a source recording and interpret from the source recording, is figuring out what you need to tune your fiddle to. The way I do it is I tune my fiddle to how they were tuned. Very few exceptions. If the source recording is tuned high, I usually don't like to tune my fiddle high, especially the two high strings. Again, A E A is one thing, tune your low two strings high, but I don't like tuning that high E string up to like an F, which sometimes they were tuned up a step. So what I usually do then at that point is I put it into like Audacity and I bring it down a step. Okay, so then the question now is how do you know what they were tuned? Okay, and what I listen for, I mean, I could tell what they're playing, even fingered notes. I could tell if it's usually if it's if they're playing a third finger G and it doesn't sound necessarily like G. I could tell what finger patterns they're using. That might be weird. So the best thing that I could pass along is where it's really obvious to me is with open strings. Okay, so you kind of listen for what sound like open strings to you, and obviously open strings have a different sound than a fingered note. The note of an open string is a different sound of a fingered note. It may resonate more, but it's not always even just that. It's just the sound of it. I could really just tell when there's an open string. So that's kind of used as a basis. So let's look at Jenny Eat the Wood Hen as the example here. So especially in the B part, there's a bit where he's hitting, and I'm tuned to standard tuning 440 right now. I'm not tuned to how he was, okay, because this is how modern fiddlers would play it. They wouldn't tune down that almost half step. I mean, we could tune to a 415A, but again, he wasn't exactly at that even. So, anyway, so I'm hearing octaves there. So in that B part, I'm hearing that, and you hear the octave, so you know he's playing an open string with that. So when he was tuned it down, say about a half step, it's still his third finger with that open string. I could just tell that. So kind of listen for open strings, okay, and that kind of helps guide you. So in that instance, the open string with that third finger, it's kind of like an F sharp. Well, you know he's not playing an F sharp with, you know, it's open string, so it has to be that. That's what it is. And also too, you could hear the E string in the A part. There's a lot of that, and you can tell it's an open E, even though it's too low, and that's really what it's meant to be. Okay. So that's the first step I do is establish the tuning, tune your fiddle to the way the source recording is tuned. In this instance, again, it's standard tuning GDA, so that may be a little easier if the fiddler was tuned like to a different A, not a 415A, and was cross tuned some way. It can get a little tricky sometimes, especially if they're tuned really low. Okay, but starting with this, I think that's a good foundation point. And you can hear that they're not changing chords. And what that does is it's really interesting in a way because it creates a lot of tension in the music because again, you have a 5 chord in the fiddle, and even he may be playing drones and he's playing an A and an E, or E and a C sharp, and if you're a D, and the guitar player is on that D chord. So it's not just a clash. It creates a lot of tension in the music. Okay, but some of it I will admit, this is again my opinion about it. I'm not saying anything bad about them and how they play the music, how they interpret the music, but to me it's a little muddy. It could become a little muddy after a while, and those parts there are where it's really kind of hard to tell what the fiddler is playing. Okay, so listen to it. I listen to the tune. I listen to the tune, and I tried to get the flow of it in my head, and then again, when you're just listening to it at speed, depending on how fast they're playing it, you could probably get a sense for some of the notes or some of the phrases, and a lot of that comes in at the end phrases. Okay, because end phrases are often there's often common end phrases to tunes, and even if they're not exact, they're similar. Okay, so you can kind of tell what's going on in an end phrase, sometimes a beginning phrase. It's the stuff in the middle that can kind of vary. All right, so see what you can kind of get is the shape of the tune in your head. And then what I do is I slow it down to get notes. And what I do is I just go to Windows Media Player, and then I back click on the play button, and it says normal playback, slow and fast. Okay, just go to slow. If you need it even slower than that, you can put it like in a program like Audacity or something. You don't need amazing slow down or program, although there's going to be other there's probably more options with that too, and I know a lot of people use that. I haven't used it. I don't have experience with it. I just am going by what people said about it. But slowing it down, usually in Windows Media Player, whatever the percentage is, I have no idea. It doesn't say. Usually that's good enough for me. Listen to us playing it on Tune of the Week, and for this, get delving into this, I would say. Okay, and then listen to the source recording. So it's like you're going backwards. Okay, I think it's a good way to start. This is going backwards, already knowing what the tune is, and then going to the source recording and making sense of the source recording with what you already know, and I'm going to show you. Okay, so another thing with the source recordings too, and again, it depends on the fiddler playing the tune, but I've noticed on a lot of them, they don't play the line the same every time. Okay, the A part and the B part, and sometimes that was intentional because again they're playing the tune and it's just kind of what's coming out, and when they play it different, you could look at it as a variation. I wouldn't even say that they thought of it that way. It's just it's them just having this tune in their head and just it's coming out in maybe different ways. However, sometimes when they play the tune differently, you could get the sense that they're relearning the tune in a way. We have no idea. When that tape recorder came out from those field recorders, when was the last time that fiddler played that tune? We don't know if they might have been nervous playing it in front of somebody who was recording this, knowing that this was going to be going into an archives, usually for the Library of Congress. Think about it. I mean, if someone said to me, hey, I want you to play this tune, and it's for the Library of Congress. It's a tune collector. It's not like they just came by and just turned their tape recorders on. These people that were being recorded, they knew it was being recorded. They knew what it was being recorded for. If somebody said that to me, I mean, I'd be nervous. You're thinking to yourself, this tune is going to end up in an archive somewhere for God knows how long, and yeah, those things long time. Okay, so we don't know the circumstances. So this is a little hint here. Listen to really focus on one of the parts, like the A part, for example, and listen to how he plays it on the first time through. And if there's a repeat, really pay attention to the repeat of it. Is he playing the same notes? Is he playing the same thing? And then they're going to play the tune multiple times, right? Second time through the tune, is he playing the same thing? Et cetera, et cetera. Look at the B part, same thing. In doing that, you could kind of detect. I don't want to so much say mistakes. They could be, but you also are kind of detecting the person getting into the tune. So when you listen to Jenny Eat the Woodhen, you hear John Lusk playing that. The way he plays it the very first time is different than even when he does it on repeat. Okay, there's some little different things in there. Okay, not major differences, and not wrong necessarily sour notes or anything like that. But you really can hear the more he's playing that tune, the more the melody is actually coming out of that tune. It's growing. Okay, and you can just surmise that he's more comfortable with it the more he plays it. Okay, when he gets to the B part, possibly the same thing. I don't remember exactly, but what I can tell you is he does do this little variation, as I would call it, which he was very consistent on. Okay, so what that tells you, if there's something in the tune that is different, but the fiddler does it regularly throughout the tune, not all the time, but maybe throws in every now and then, and it's the same, you can figure right there that's just a little variation that he's doing. Um, so now, how do we add those things then to the tune when we play it? Because you're playing a tune in a jam. You're not going to play it different every single time you play it. That's not going to help anybody. Unless it's a tune like everybody knows. You're not going to do that. So what I end up doing is I settle on a way of playing it that I like. When you learn it, do put a pattern to it. Okay, for example, so in the B part of this tune, he played the B part 3 times usually. Sometimes it was 2, I think. There might have been one that he played 4. I'm not quite sure about that, but that's another thing you're going to settle on. How many times you're going to repeat a part. If they've repeated it a different amount of time, you'll settle on that. It's a short B part. I often like the odd number B parts when they're short parts, so 3, and he did do it like that, so I'm cool with that. So I settle on that, and then that little variation thing. Um, Literally decide when you're going to do it. So in this instance, I do it on the second time. So the first time I play it the way the tune is. The second time I do the little variation. The third time I actually put my own little thing, and I like to put a slide in there because to me it's kind of like this bird kind of squawking a little bit. So there's my own little bit kind of coming out in it. So when you learn the tune, I would say do it that way. And then eventually what happens then is when you're playing the tune, you got in the B, that first way of doing it, the second way of doing it, the third way of doing it. And eventually that's just to learn it, because then when you start playing the tune, you're just good to what's going to come out is what comes out. Okay, you're not actually planning it that